Today on the Capital Outlay Subcommittee, we were going to receive an update from Joe D'Amico on the various Capital Square projects. And as I said, we're primarily interested in where we are with the projects and what cost overruns there are in this time of inflation that we can anticipate would affect the budget.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Senator Sassel, how are you? So you can do it. Okay, there's the clicker.
Sure.
All right.
You can sit down if you want.
Yeah.
Turn the mic on because it doesn't pick up on the screen otherwise. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for allowing DGS to present to you some of the larger capital projects going on.
While I have you in here, could you do a whole lot of people a favor? Keep the building heat here at 71 or 72 and not 68.
Yes, sir. We will look into it.
I don't ask for a whole lot in life.
Well,
And I'll even help you pay for the difference in the natural gas.
we will look into it. Yes, sir. Thank you. It is cold.
Particularly downstairs.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, when I get back to the office, I'll have my folks look into it. Yes, sir. Senator Hanger, how are you this morning?
Doing great, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good, good.
So today we're going to talk about the 7th and Main Street office building development, new Commonwealth Courts building development, the General Assembly building, the two tunnels that are associated with the General Assembly building, 9th and Broad Street parking deck. And then, Mr. Chairman, to your point, we're going to talk a little bit about some cost drivers that we've been looking at as it relates to inflation and prevailing wage. 7th and Main Street office building. Recall in 2019, the General Assembly made a commitment to this site. This is the old Virginia Employment Commission site to purchase the rights or the interests of that site that the feds had on it and for future development. In 2020, DGS looked at that site as an opportunity to develop the site for a state office building to move our current tenants in the Monroe building out and into this new office building.
The Monroe building is right there, Capitol Square.
It's the one that fronts 95, the Monroe Tower.
Oh, okay.
It's just 200 yards behind the Capitol.
That's correct. It's the large building you see as you're coming north and south on 95. So we came to the General Assembly last year and made a case that it was more cost-effective to build a new building over the course of the next 50 years than to try to continue to maintain the Monroe Tower. And I'll get into the funding in a minute. The General Assembly at that time did agree and provided funding for detailed planning. And again, I'll talk about that in a minute. But right now our scope in the building that we're looking at the VEC site is a smaller building that we have at Monroe because we believe that through design we can be more efficient and still not knowing where we're going to land with telework and how that's going to impact how we use our space. But a smaller building, same number of parking spaces that we're going to move over from the Monroe Tower to this site. And right now we are just wrapping up the procurement for the design team on this building.
Are you anticipating that the parking spaces would be under? Are you anticipating that the parking spaces would be under the building?
Right now, there are a couple different concepts in design, and we haven't, again, bringing on the design team, we could go underground with it or partially underground and above ground. So we'll take a look at that as we develop the site, but I don't really have a specific answer for you right now.
We only paid $7 million for that building, did it? It was cheap.
Yeah, I think it was 6. It was 6. Yeah.
You know what we got the City Hall for? 1980.
I don't.
30-year lease was up. I think it was that was signed. The ground lease.
Yes, sir.
And we had the rights to it. It was apparently done in 1950. We had the rights to it in 1980, and Willie, purchased it $250,000.
$250,000.
Bill Thomas went to buy it himself and build condos there. And the fact it was that year that they bought all of the buildings around Capitol Square because they were all on ground lease to other, to non-governmental agencies.
Sure.
And they bought them all. And I never forgot this because when the budget bill hit the floor, Ray Garland put in an amendment to use the Roanoke, saying, we shouldn't be expanding government like this. It's a waste of money. He went on and on. And Ed Willie got up, and you will not believe this. He said, Chuck Robbins, Lieutenant he says, you know, he says, I've been listening to the new freshman senator from Roanoke, it makes a lot of sense. And when we get into conference, I'm gonna take out the $3 million I put in for that library in Roanoke. And as he was talking, Garland went up there and asked Chuck Robb to give him back his floor.
Well, that was a good purchase, sir.
Yeah.
Funding authorization for the 7th and Main Street office building, again, in 2021, the General Assembly authorized $11.3 million in detailed design. In the introduced budget, you will see that there is a item C1, $10.8 million for the demolition of the site. So as we were looking at this site over the past year, and because VEC is now no longer in it, it is becoming what we believe to be a safety issue, that it's if we're going to develop it, let's go ahead and make a move and take it down. And so we need funding this year for starting demo in 2022.
There's been no determination on the Monroe building, whether you tear that down or sell it.
You have not made a decision on that yet, sir. No, sir. Our timeline for this building, design will begin the first quarter of 2022. Building demolition, again, if funded, we will get on that in second quarter 2023. Yeah. Design complete first quarter 2024. Construction to begin third quarter 2024 if funded. And then, again, if we keep this on a schedule through the capital outlay process, and we are funded, we hope to have this building complete and ready to go in 2027. Commonwealth Courts building. So we came to the General Assembly last year and made a case that the current building that houses the Supreme Court and Court of Appeals would not meet their needs going forward, and proposed the development of the site that we're sitting at today, the Pocahontas building, both East and West Tower. What we did in 2020 is the data that we had as to the scope of the number of individuals that made up the courts. We had 489 FTEs and 39 interns, and that led us to a 223,000 square foot building. So we were proceeding down that path. We had put in a budget request to enter into detailed funding at that scope at the time in 2020.
Did we tear down the Pocahontas building?
Yes, sir.
This one right here.
The one we're in here today, yes. In 2021, as you all know, new judges were authorized for the Court of Appeals. Along with that came some additional support staff, which increased the FTE count to 51 additional FTE, which now obviously is expanding the size of this building from 220,000 square feet to 275,000 square feet. The ask here, again, Mr. Chairman, your question came up about what additional funding are we looking at needing next year. Here's one where with that expansion to keep us on a timeline, a design timeline, we're requesting an additional $4 million to complete that design to add the additional scope.
Has there been any determination about what would happen with the old Supreme Court building?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay. That's where the Federal Reserve used to be, right?
Correct.
And there's a gun turret in the basement.
In the
Yeah.
basement. I think there's still actually a bullet hole or two down in the glass down there.
It's very cool.
Right.
It's a Depression era, I guess, when gangsters, the threat of gangsters was something they were concerned about.
It's a very interesting infrastructure down in that basement. If anybody would like to take a tour of it sometime, let me know. Senator Sasslaw, to your point, DGS will look to demolish the Pocahontas East Tower. Good morning, Senator. How are you, sir?
Well, when you say the east tower, what is?
It's the Pocahontas, the white building that
This,
this building that we're in today. Yes, sir. Yep. And renovate the West Tower. So we would keep the structure that we have on the West Tower, I think it's 14-story facility. And
keep that, or?
we would keep that and renovate that building. As you all know, there is a VCU computer room that is in the basement of this building that provides computing services to not only the medical facility but also the academic campus. It's a critical.
55,000 square feet. I have an ad. Sorry.
You want me to go back?
No, no, no.
Okay.
Well, I was going to ask that question. Which slide is that?
It's just,
Got it up on the screen, sir.
Senator Norman, was concerned about this, concerned about the Court of Appeals, and we're just advising him that we're having to add a little more than 50,000 square feet to the building because of the additional full-time employees we've added with the new Court of Appeals, or the expansion.
I don't have any questions. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So continuing on with the Pocahontas building and the VCU Computer Center. So that's something that DGS will have to address, working very closely with VCU to have them vacate this building to keep us on a timeline that we're looking at for the development of this site. We have already executed a design contract with a local architectural firm to start designing the new facility for the courts. Our timeline for the courts building design began the first quarter of 2022. We hope to have that complete the second quarter of 2024 again, if we get that additional funding that we're looking for in design, $4 million. If the construction is funded going forward, you'll see our timeline there. We would start demolition first quarter of 2024 and have the building complete the fourth quarter of 2027.
Basically the same schedule you've got for the old VEC building.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Yep. Senator Norman.
Because we've expanded the Court of Appeals and they have all that administrative, what are we doing with them now?
They're in leased space, Senator.
I'm sorry?
They are in leased space.
Lease space.
Yes, sir.
Lease space from the Commonwealth or a private entity?
From a private entity. Yes, sir. And I can get you the details on that lease if you'd like.
What is that lease payment running annualized?
I off the top of my head, I don't know, sir, but
You always know everything.
I know, sir. I didn't bring that with me.
All right, thank you, sir.
I will provide that information to you, though. Yes, sir. All right, so the fund, we've been through that. General Assembly Building. Any other questions on the courts building before I move forward?
We're all
Okay.
right.
General Assembly Building, we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, literally, 2 tunnels, too.
It's been under construction for what, 5 years now?
If you include the demolition phase of it, yes, sir. We have been at that site for working on 5 years.
The reason that I asked is, I've seen them put these buildings up at Tyson's Corner, 30 stories in 2 years. I know y'all had to preserve that wall.
Well, preserving that wall was a big part of, been a big part of the delay, hadn't it? I mean, the challenge has been keeping that in place.
So there were a couple factors, if I may, Mr. Chairman and Senator, as to why this has been a little bit longer than we all had hoped. One is the demolition of the buildings and the preservation of the 1923 facade of the GAB. Second, if you recall, we had completed the design, we were in construction, and then there was a need for some additional enhanced security in the building, as well as we introduced the tunnel now from the General Assembly Building to the Capitol. And so with that, we had to go back into redesign that, kind of slow roll the construction, right, because there's going to be impact on the construction. So we slow rolled that until the design caught back up on how we were going to incorporate.
That's the old Life of Virginia building.
Correct.
that They were renovating when I first got here. We were across the street, and that, if you walk out of the GAB and make a turn right, here in the Capitol Square.
The 9th and 8th Street office buildings?
Yeah. That's
Right.
where we were.
Okay.
Remember when they tested the elevator here, the one in the middle fell all the way to the basement. Didn't give us a good feeling.
I'm just sorry I couldn't put a few people on.
So looking at this, it looks like the General Assembly Building won't be finished until the fourth quarter of this year.
Yes, so you fast forwarded on me.
Sorry.
That's okay. We'll grow with that. I'm good. So fourth quarter,
Second quarter of next year.
So, what, we'll be ready for the 2020,
See what it says.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
We'll be in there for the 2023 session.
yes, sir. And our target is to start moving staff and legislator offices from this building into the new GAB in October of this year. Our hope is, and leave it up to the members and the clerks to decide, that in December we actually could use that building for committee meetings prior to the 2023 session. But again, your call. But that's the target that we're shooting for this year, and to keep this moving. And let's get in it. And let's get started.
Willing to bet a magnum of Don Perignon champagne on that?
Maybe $1.
Have you all
Buy that
been through the
Target.
building? Have you been through the building? Have you,
No,
Emma,
I haven't.
have you been through the building, Ted?
No, I haven't.
No.
Okay, it's worth going through because there will be the rooms are nice, the privacy is there, the security, I mean, and the offices, the office space will have a little more space, but the public will also have more space, so it's,
That's good.
the design of the building is
Yeah.
So on the first floor, we've got food service in the entryway. Third floor are going to be the Senate committee rooms. Floors 5 and 6 are going to be the offices for the
Second floor,
second floor is going to be the House committee rooms.
the first floor,
First floor will be the entryway and then food service.
restaurant.
Yes, Merriweather's, kind of like a Merriweather's. Yes, yes, sir.
Why are we not on the second floor in there up higher?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Norman, I had worked with the clerks very closely on the selection of the floors.
Higher's supposed to be better, isn't it? Well, I do like looking down at them.
You can't get the people that own the French
Well-
Laundry to come in and open up.
Maybe this will help, sir. The Senate Finance Committee is on the 13th floor, and House Appropriations is on the 12th. Leadership on the 14th.
On the what floor?
Do what?
Leadership is on the 14th. Senate Finance on 13.
Okay.
House Approps on 12. Okay? All right. So just a couple pictures. On the left, you'll see a rendering of the finished main lobby, where we are today, bottom right-hand corner. You see walls going up, and we are well on our way to putting in finishes and bringing this building to closure. I think another interesting shot here is on the second floor, large atrium off of the House committee rooms. That gives some nice views of the Capitol. We're starting to close this space in too with drywall. You see all the framing in, and I don't think in this picture the windows are in yet, but working on putting the windows in that space as well. Of course, we got to have a picture of the restroom. Just wanted to make sure to get that out there to see if anybody's got any concerns or questions on how that may be, coming along. And then the fifth floor, which is a Senate floor, again, you see walls going up, paint going on, and we're starting to put in the ceiling tile. So again, we're excited about the point we're in now, and things start moving much more quickly.
It looks like the tunnel doesn't run exactly to the Capitol.
All right, so yeah, the tunnel. So connecting the GAB to the Capitol. The tunnel will exit the south side of the new General Assembly building. It'll run, as you see here in this kind of brown line, down to the the west side of the extension of the Capitol. So where it's coming in at is kind of visualize as you're coming through the extension, and you're either taking the elevator up or you're walking up the steps to the level with the last elevator before you enter the Capitol. The tunnel will
Come in there.
it'll come in at that level above Merriweather's.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's not bad.
Okay. Tunnel's approximately 600 feet long, and we will need to place an emergency exit stair on Capitol Square, and I'll show you kind of a little rendering of what that looks like here in a minute.
I forget, is the public going to be able to use this tunnel?
That'll be a call for the members and the clerks.
Discussion.
Yes, sir.
Minimization of duplicate security.
Yes, sir.
No, you're all
No,
right.
good question, sir, and that's one that's still hanging out there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so to kind of talk us through the timing on the tunnel, we got a number of lovely colors up on this slide. You'll see Phase 1A, Phase 1B, 2A, 3, and 2B. You may ask where Phase 1A is. That is Phase 1 is the work that we've done inside of the current GAB infrastructure to prepare to break through that foundation and then pick up the tunnel, and I'll show you that here in a minute. So looking at Phase 1B, 12/13/21 through 6/4/22, we've actually started digging from the GAB site up to the Capitol historic fence, and I'll show you a picture of that. So we're well underway in digging that trench. Oh, by the way, that's going to be about a 25-foot deep trench line that we're going to be running through almost the center of Capitol Square. So just when we thought we had Capitol Square put back together after we did the North Drive work and building the Women's Monument and some of the other construction around Capitol Square, we're going to have to get back into it for another couple of years.
Can I dedicate Phase 2A? I like that.
Phase 2A?
I like the color.
So Phase 2A and Phase 2B, you'll note that one starts a little bit earlier than the other, but pretty much they run along the same timeline. We are going to...
Now, will that thing, bottom line, be done in time for the 23 session?
It will not.
It will not.
It will not be ready for 2023. 2024 will be the first time it'll be able to be used. We are putting some comms out today. We provided to the clerks yesterday and also to our tenants at Capitol Square that Capitol Square will be fenced in certain areas, so it'll be more difficult to walk around the square. We have left the west entrance open for members to use. Again, just I'd ask people navigating the square use caution in that space. You'll see there the funding authorizations, 2020 Appropriations Act, $25 million. We are within budget and we are within schedule. This is kind of a rendering of what we're left with at the end of the day. Tunnel's covered up, and you've got this little stairway coming from the ground. That's that emergency exit stair that I mentioned earlier. This picture here shows an inside shot of you standing in the basement of the General Assembly building. You're right behind you would be the elevator lobby, the core, and looking straight ahead, that green area in between those two columns is where we're going to punch through the building and then hit the tunnel on the other side of the building. Here's the other side of the building where we've already started to trench. This is Phase 1 of the construction. And we're starting to work our way towards the historic fence, which is down in the area that needs to move out of our way so we can continue on to the Phase 1B portion of the project.
Did former Speaker Philip Corn ask you to drill under the Harry Bird statue to let it collapse?
No, sir, that was not a request.
The statute's gone.
Will the tunnel, the parking deck be done by then?
We're going to get to that in a minute, sir. Yep. All right. Got a few more fun pictures to show. So, tunnel to the parking deck. You brought it up, Senator Saslaw. So here is a picture of how we look today. On the picture on the left, you're standing inside the General Assembly building basement, looking west to the parking deck. So you'll see where we've got we've formed up the tunnel. We haven't obviously put the finishes in. We don't want you to walk through a dirty, nasty area, but we are well on our way to completing the tunnel. Then if you were to walk from where you are on the left side of that picture to that door that is closed, when the door is open, is what you see in the bottom right-hand corner. We're now looking into the basement of the parking deck where you would come down in an elevator, get off, and then come through the doorway that you see here and make your entry into the General Assembly building.
Now, will that tunnel be ready for the 2023 session?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So let's talk about the 9th and Broad Street parking deck a little bit, and obviously that needs to be completed so we can use that tunnel from the parking deck to the GAB. Little scope of the parking deck is a 500-car parking deck, 300 which of those spaces will be controlled by the legislative branch, 200 will be controlled by it'll go into the DGS parking system for us to allocate to executive branch and other state employees that work in the Capitol Square area. It'll have 7 levels, 6 above ground, 1 below, 25 electric charging stations.
You want to charge for that electricity?
We are looking how we're going to charge for that. Yes, sir. First floor office space, we have the Division of Legislative Services, Commission on Youth, Chesapeake Bay Commission, and VPM will be occupying the first floor space that fronts Broad Street. And then, of course, the tunnel to the new GAB. Construction began second quarter of 2021. We will be complete third quarter of 2022. Actually, we see this facility being completed before the General Assembly building is ready to be occupied. And it will be ready for the 2023 General Assembly session. Yes. A couple pictures here. You'll see a rendering of the parking deck on the left-hand side. You'll see on the right-hand side where we are in construction, we're ready to come up on the 3rd level of parking. We've got 2 levels complete already. So moving right along with the deck. Funding authorization, 2014, $38 million to build this deck.
Mr. Chairman, on the 300, and remind me, I apologize, the 300 legislative parking spots, you envision having the legislators park there?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Norman, yes, it would be legislators and staff. And the allocation, again, give it to the clerks and, yes, sir. Yep, yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Now, when you say 300, does that include the clerk staff?
It includes legislative staff.
No, clerks, the Senate and House clerk staff.
Yes.
It's not like our aides get to park there.
The RAs won't be able to park there then.
And it's probably not all of their staff, and that's where the clerks are going to have to take a look at. All right, I've got 300 parking space.
You have 140 members of the General Assembly.
Right.
Okay, there's 140 spaces. Then if each only has 1 aide, now you're talking 280 of the 300. That would leave 20 left for the clerks of both the House and the Senate. And I don't know what the number is in the House, but Susan's got 29 in the Senate.
I would imagine there still would be some parking of some staff down at the 9th and Franklin deck. Again, those allocations.
You got the 200 executive. Why would
Yes.
they be lumped in there?
There are, as you know, we're renovating the old City Hall.
Right.
And some of the tenants, at least one of the tenants, DHRM, who's currently in Monroe, is coming over. And so trying to accommodate some of their parking needs. Parking, as we all know, around Capitol Square is always of interest to many. And so we do our best in juggling the allocations that we have. So we'll work through it, and we'll make as many people happy as we possibly can.
Build another parking garage.
Give them the money.
I don't know that we want to do that after the money that we've spent on City Hall.
I was going to say, how many times have we renovated that damn building?
Many, and this is the last. You won't have to do it for another 100 years, sir.
It's gonna be-
I'll get another $1 bet. Another $1 bet
Why don't you just add 2 levels to it?
to the parking deck.
Yeah.
I think we've already crossed that bridge.
That's right. We're beyond that at this point.
I know some good
Or we could-
VMI engineers that can figure it out.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a VMI engineer on this job right now.
That's why I said it.
Yeah.
That's why I said it.
So the subcommittee asked us to take a look at, or at least give some comments and thoughts on cost drivers as it relates to construction projects. And we looked at a couple things, inflation and then prevailing wage. Let me start by saying that you all may know that within DGS we have the Division of Engineering and Buildings. And the Division of Engineering and Buildings provides cost estimating services for the Department of Planning and Budget and the Money Committee. So we have a staff of individuals that actually do cost estimating for the Commonwealth to come up with cost estimates for construction projects that are used then to you all to make decisions on what to authorize within the capital budget process. So how we do that is we collect information from another number of sources on how we see the economy moving, right, through inflation and cost impacts. So a couple sources that we look at are the Federal Reserve Bank of Economic Data Producer Price Index. It tracks producer costs to produce construction material and supply finished products to retailers and contractors. It provides an indication whether or not costs are going up or down. And right now, the percent change from December 2020 to December 2021 is almost 35%. We also look at the engineering news record, building cost index, an index on inflation costs to construct buildings, looking at skilled labor, carpenters, bricklayers, ironworkers, things of that nature. That indicator over the past year has risen 13.9% or almost 14%. We take a look at Turner Building Cost Index, Turner Construction Company that puts this out. Their data is only as good as third quarter of last year. We don't have their fourth quarter data, and you'll see 3% over the past year. We don't believe that's reflective over the past year of where we are today, the percentage. I don't know that it's going to necessarily jump up to the 13 or 14% we see with ENR, but it does still show and indicate, obviously, costs going up through inflation for construction. As well as DGS collects its own data. So as construction projects are completed, what DGS DEB will do is they'll go back out to the owning agency and say, all right, tell us your final cost on your building. And so what they'll do is they'll pump that into their database. And so what they do is they mash all these percentages together and kind of come up with what they believe, working again with Money Committee staff and DPB, what we believe should be a percentage used as we go about making cost estimates for our construction budgets. Prevailing wage. So in 2021, there was legislation that required that prevailing wage provisions be included in the general conditions of state contracts. The Department of Labor and Industry, they set the wages for the construction contracts, and the wage is different based upon the region of the state that you're in. It is unknown at this time what that impact is on our state projects because we're just now getting into some construction projects. We have very few really to base any solid position on what the impact is going to be. What I was able to do, I had one of our contractors provide me some data. We took a look at some Bureau of Labor Statistics data along with the Dolly wage rates. And what's interesting when you look at the categories of the workers, some of the wage rates in the Dolly prevailing wage are lower than the bureaus, but then some are higher. And I would say the swing in both cases range from like 5 to 10%. Again, it goes back to we really don't know what the prevailing wage impact is going to be. And it also depends on supply and demand too, right? Because a lot of building going on, trying to find workers and laborers to do the work, regardless of what's in the prevailing wage rate or what the Bureau of Statistics are saying is the average, it's going to come back to supply and demand and the market rate. But the floor will always be that prevailing wage rate.
West Virginia had an interesting experience. They repealed it, and the first couple of schools that were built without the prevailing wage actually came in, and they were identical size, came in way higher because they had some labor problems. And I've always maintained better off with the best labor than you are the cheapest. Mm-hmm. That's the experience we've had on the hot lanes up in Northern Virginia. And that I-95, 495, that was built with no union supposed to be 560 million, came in at 830 million. The first set of hot lanes was supposed to be 2.1 billion. That was done with a project labor agreement by Bechtel and Lane. Bechtel and Lane have a policy that they will not do any road construction project that has a bridge or a tunnel without a project labor agreement. Because they said they've had disastrous experiences when they happen. And so, it's a mixed bag. The I-95 into DC on the Beltway was a project labor agreement, and that also came in ahead of schedule and under budget. I mean, like I said, it's a mixed bag.
Sure, sure. So let me go on to, okay, so kind of to wrap up the inflation and prevailing wage impacts on how we go about estimating our capital budget projects here. DEB, for cost estimating purposes, that we work with the 6-year Capital Outlay Plan Advisory Committee, again, the Money Committees and DPB. Where we have landed at this time for an inflation factor, considering the material cost, worker availability, and supply chain impact, we're assigning about a 10% factor increase. Again, kind of reflect back on what I had said. It was like we saw 3%, 13, and then that outlier 35%. So we landed at 10%. On the prevailing wage, we're looking at about a 15% cost increase. With a total, when we start looking at and estimating these projects right now, because things are so volatile, this past year, we're looking at these construction projects with a 25% additional increase in cost. Again, these are estimates. These are not final percent increases, and we won't know that until these projects actually go out to bid or actually go out for procurement. The 25% also, it may be an average. I mean, you could see some projects, maybe they come in at 10, 15%, and some 25, 26%. We just don't know. So Senator, I don't have all the answers right now on this either. It's still something that we're still collecting data on. DEB is asking our state agencies when they go out to bid and procure that we ask them for both a number if you were doing this under prevailing wage and if you were not doing it under prevailing wage. So we're going to collect that data and then take a look at really what the impact is down the road. Mr. Chairman, that's all I've got. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Thanks so much. Are there additional questions for Mr. D'Amico? Joe,
Just heat the building,
Yeah.
Heat the building. Got it.
and particularly my office on the 6th floor, God.
I'm just grateful we were able to ask questions
Thank you so
along.
much, really.
This is all important stuff.
Good presentation.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Anytime
you.
we can be of help, let us know. And if you want to take a tour of the building, let me know too.
Okay, thank you.
Nice seeing everybody.
Thank
We'll
you.
We'll rise.